Fire recovery. Some people who live in Altadena are worried about the future and who might move in. And just the past week, we told you about the first couple of damaged properties being put up for sale and the barren fire-escaped lots that are selling for sizable amounts. But that is frightening for some. NBC4's Tracy Leong has a message tonight from those who marched at a community rally.
Several dozen protesters gathered here earlier tonight at Woodbury and Lincoln to send a very clear message. Altadena is not for sale.
Altadena's not for sale.
A rallying cry to preserve Altadena's legacy.
We don't need anybody to come in and buy our homes. We just want to rebuild and be able to get back into our properties.
We moved right here, and we're going to live here for the rest of our life.
After the Eaton fire ravaged their community, Altadena homeowners are determined to restore what was lost.
My husband's family bought in the 70s or before the 70s, so they are one of those early African-American families that were able to buy when they couldn't buy in other areas. Part of what we love about this neighborhood is how diverse it is. Our kids are ethnically, racially mixed, and so this is a community where there's a long history of diversity.
The mission of the group, Altadena Not for Sale, is to help the under and non-insured stay in Altadena by providing support and resources.
Altadenans have been here for generations, and they've shared their generational wealth with each other. And the way to have wealth is with property. And so we're afraid that if they sell their land, they're going to lose their wealth.
Many are worried investors may be trying to take advantage of them. Their main concern is making sure large developers don't come in and build large-scale residential projects that are not aligned with the charm and character of Altadena.
We were getting phone calls almost right away, but we were advised by a lawyer to remind them that it is against the law. Do you know if you're going to rebuild? Do you want to rebuild? And then when I would answer, they would be like, oh, you know, you don't need to go through the hassle. You can just sell and buy yourself a new home.
The group is facilitating ways to work with contractors who will restore the historic architectural style of Altadena, while also helping to protect the community for future generations.
Don't give up. You're not alone, and we are not for sale.
Altadena not for sale. No.
The group is also selling Altadena Not for Sale merchandise. All proceeds will go towards purchasing these lawn signs so they can distribute to the community around Altadena. Reporting in Altadena, Tracy Leong, NBC4 News.
The Cows, Gus T. Renegade, in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the system of white supremacy racism. Today's date, Monday, February 24, 2025. So I have been told. We will be back. Our timing remains impeccable. The metronome. Didn't I say that? The book club. Friday, even trying to readjust in my own brain computer. Catherine Massey Book Club here Friday, second installment. Dr. Maya Angelou's memoir, A Song Flung Up to Heaven. We were reading last week, Friday, February 21st, Minister Malcolm X's assassination as Dr. Angelou was returning to San Francisco, California. This week, she's returning from grieving in Hawaii about the loss of Minister Malcolm, returns to L.A., we get to the Watts riots. Wacky. And it is 60 years from the Watts riots, unless my math is off. I guess they'll probably talk about that later this year. Anyway, prior to all of that, our broadcast for today, I can only say, man, it has been something. I said way back at this time last year, I think I was talking about, as a Seattle resident, I was talking about, man, let's go to California. We got to do this research, Jonestown, People's Temple, all of that, got to go research. finally go to California at the end of the year, end of October to November. I was thinking originally I was just going to be going to San Francisco, end up going to LA for a week, and then going to spend that month to do research in San Francisco. It has not been lost on me. Really, I mean, sometimes you get messages from the creator and everything. Did I not tell you? I came on the broadcast in November. While in LA, went to the film festival and all that, hung out in Hollywood, all that stuff. I went to Malibu. I sat on the beach in Malibu and I said, October 28th, festival ended on the 27th, sat on the beach in Malibu on the 28th of October, and I said, climate change is going to take all of this. And I said that confidently at the time. Fires were not in my brain at all. I was just looking at the water and saying, wow, there's no beach left if it rises at all. Whew. And that is a problem, but the wildfires, to be here, wow. When it all started, I looked back and thought, wow. And then the other part was the entire time, and I mean from the time that plane landed in LAX coming out of Seattle, I said, oh my, we're going into the desert, and ew, the air, look. I groused about that the whole time I was there. I didn't talk. I talked about the film festival, and wow, is the air this bad all the time? Wow, what do y'all do about that? Wow, do you have... Didn't I talk about that the whole time? Didn't I grouse about that even after I left and went to San Francisco? That was what I talked about. And then it has really messed with my brain computer. Even easily, I said I could have been there when all of this happened. Like, oh my, man. In addition to the black residents who live in Altadena and non-white people and everything that they've had to deal with and that they will have to deal with moving forward. If you are concerned with the racism, black people, non-white people, I would definitely encourage you, pay attention to what is happening right now. Southern California with those wildfires that just took place, really, that they just got extinguished. What does the recovery look like? And especially for C.O.W.S listeners, we are students of Hurricane Katrina. We have seen what can happen to black people in particular when there is some sort of natural disaster. Many, I was going to say some say, but that's kind of tacky. Many say, nigh on 20 years later, the Ninth Ward and many black people in New Orleans, East New Orleans, still have not recovered. And I've seen other folks mention that as well when they have talked about black residents in Altadena. Our guest for today's broadcast, their organization has done spectacular work. It is absolutely amazing. You should go to the website and be specific. What have they done? Whole vehicles, giving out, teaming up with Cedric the Entertainer, who I think many folks know just from movies and stand-up comedy and all of that. Pitched right in to help out in giving out cars, to help out victims immediately. That is not just lip service and, oh man, that was terrible. Aw shucks. A vehicle, because I mean a lot of people, their cars burned up or, are not usable anymore. So tangible things. They have a 2-year fundraiser because, I mean, hey, what did I just say about Katrina? It's been 20 years. 2-year fundraiser to directly aid all of the many victims in the Southern California area who've been impacted by all of this. So many children, so much to talk about. But please go to the website, www.brotherhoodcrusade.org. Address again, www.brotherhoodcrusade.org. You'll see the information for the Brotherhood Crusade Wildfire Relief Fund. All of the information, great work that they have done already, and more to come. www.brotherhoodcrusade.org. Really glad to have her as a guest on the program. They have such a busy schedule, and she carved some time out to come and talk to us this evening to talk about how the wildfires have impacted black people directly if people are not informed, and then all of the fantastic work that they are doing, how folks, if you would like to get involved and support their efforts. She has been president, CEO of the Brotherhood Crusade for almost the last quarter century. Dedication. So thankful to have her on the program live. Joining us from SoCal, Miss Charisse Bremond. Miss Bremond, you with us?
I am with you. And thank you for that great introduction.
Well earned. For folks who have not heard anything about who you are and the work of the Brotherhood Crusade, we're certainly going to get into the details, but just anything that you would like to share briefly before we get started about who you are and the work you do?
Yeah, I love to always talk about history of our institution, as you talked about the C.O.W.S. Rebellion. My late father, Walter Bremond, was part of the Black Congress, created out of a movement of love for our people, led the organization, and also created the National Black United Fund. Shortly after the C.O.W.S. Rebellion, the Black Congress knew we needed to incorporate. My father took out a second of $15,000 on our home to give it life. After the National, Danny Bakewell Sr., who is in the newspaper business, the Los Angeles Sentinel, led our institution for 35 years. Fast forward, once he bought the Los Angeles Sentinel newspaper, the handoff was to me as the first woman president of Brotherhood Crusade. So truly honored to follow not only in my footsteps, but my mentor, Danny Bakewell Sr., to lead such an incredible institution.
www.brotherhoodcrusade.org. Get more information and future projects as well. For folks, this is their first time hearing all of your great work, learning about your organization. Maybe they haven't seen you. You are a black female. Is that correct, Miss Bremond?
Yes, I am a black female leader. Yes, I am.
Right on, right on. 20 years on the job. Are you an LA native?
I am a California native. Actually, I was born in Oakland Children's Hospital, moved to Los Angeles with my parents when I was 5 years of age, and so Los Angeles is home, and just honored to grow up. Went to all Inglewood schools, and so my whole philosophy is self-love for black folks, and how we do it with care and dignity and respect is something that our motto that we live by every day at the Brotherhood Crusade.
Love it, love it. See there, Bay Area, LA, connect. That's what I did. I just did the reverse. I went LA first, then went north. Let's see. So she said she was born in Oakland, but then they moved south to LA, and she's been there, it seems, ever since. Were you in LA for the LA riots by chance?
We were in LA for the LA riots, for the C.O.W.S. Rebellion, most definitely. Yes, a lot of history of working in the community. And really, I think that the love of watching my parents, have a household full of activists all the time, it impacted me. I mean, our house was under surveillance by the FBI when they were looking for Angela Davis. My father was very good friends with Angela Davis. When you look at the movement out of the 60s of so many people migrating to Los Angeles and just understanding the needs of black people, I lived in a house, 6002 Ladera Park Avenue, when our house was firebombed. And so I think, more importantly, I lost my father at a very young age. I was 18. He died right after he sued the federal government and won a lawsuit against United Way to open up payroll deductions through the federal giving program to allow black folks to have access. And shortly after that lawsuit, he died of a massive heart attack. But what always stood out to me, thousands of people were at Holman Methodist Church, Reverend James Lawson, who recently passed, who marched with Dr. King and did so much of the heavy lift with Dr. King. It had a profound impact on my life. I knew in that moment in that church, if I could touch a third of the people my father touched, my life would matter. Right out of college, I went to Utah State on a women's basketball scholarship. As soon as I graduated, came home, scheduled a meeting with Mr. Bakewell, and said I need to work here. And fast forward, worked there, worked for elected official, and worked for some other Black-led organizations before coming back home 20-plus years now.
Wow. See what I said before. The introduction, well earned. What I know now, it was probably kind of shabby, actually. 2 points, quickly, and then we'll get to the wildfires and you all's efforts there, how people can help. You said your house was under FBI surveillance and the house was firebombed. What?
I did.
Are you pulling our leg? Like, what?
No, not even. And I think, while we were all in the house, and you will never forget that moment when your parents could have died, but more importantly, just how they just went into protection mode. Two brothers. I'm the youngest, and our safety, our parents, they were like, it was just pandemonium. Called my aunt, come get the kids. We stayed up there for a week with my aunt and uncle, and just knew it. And honestly, if anybody knew Walter Bremond, just a fighter for us. I can't say it any other way, that how he loved Black people and would do anything for our race was just extraordinary. And for me to witness it as a child, to understand, if you love your people and you put your people before even your own health, it says everything. And the values and the integrity and the accountability. And even when our house was firebombed, it didn't stop him. And so you just know that we have a responsibility to take care of each other.
Wow. Timing again. Now, we did just talk about the assassination of Minister Malcolm X in history. Now, 7 days prior to the bombing, his assassination, his house was firebombed mysteriously. Wow. Just wow. Walter Bremond. Wow. That you did say he passed away from a heart attack at 48, given what she just said. And hey, having your house firebombed with your children in it, that might give you some health problems, hypertension, just maybe, especially if you care about your children at all. John Henryism, that was what came to mind. John Henryism. The other component, when you gave us your answer, you said you were talented, maybe precursor to the young Juju Watkins, said she was out hooping in Utah. I said, whoa.
Yes.
They don't.
Yes.
They don't really have dark people in Utah. Karl Malone notwithstanding. And then on top of that, I happen to have read a lot of reports that some of the best to play basketball out of California, Kobe Bryant and Magic Johnson and LeBron James go to Utah and get called a nigger. Did you have any problems with racism playing basketball in Utah?
It was a cultural shock. And at the time, it was 14 black women in the whole university, and probably about 150 men athletes who attended when I attended there. I did not have any discrimination against me. It's kind of ironic. Actually, was the first black woman to be named Alumni of the Year for the university. And they still embrace kind of like my role in leadership when I was on campus. So I'm sure it might have existed, but for me, very fortunate that I did not. And probably if I did have some of that, I probably wouldn't have been able to stay at the university. So
she counted. She said it was 14. I counted. It's 14.
14. 14. And what it taught me, though, if I can make it in Logan, Utah, I can make it anywhere in the world. And I think sometimes you need to understand all aspects of life. And that's what Logan, Utah taught me. It taught me a lot about myself that I graduated from that university.
Wow. Bravo. Now, you see, some people, they go to college and they stay there. They love it. She came back to California. Right on. Got graduated, but she came back home.
Graduated. Came back home. Oh, I knew. It was no doubt where I was coming to work in L.A. and at Brotherhood Crusade. So that was my first job out of college, left, worked for elected official, worked for other nonprofits, but eventually my goal and my dream, as I have the best job on earth, is leading an institution that the community built. And that's what is so beautiful about our institution, understanding, yes, it was my father, Mr. Bakewell, but it was really community that said, we care about the work that you're doing and we're going to sustain you. And here we are now, 57 years later, still standing, still doing great work.
Outstanding. CEO and president of the Brotherhood Crusade, Ms. Charisse Bremond, here with us on the C.O.W.S. I guess to get specifically to the wildfires, and I feel like I had your dad written down, but I feel like you'll probably be able to sprinkle in, his influence throughout the broadcast. So feel free. Were you personally impacted by the wildfires in the Palisades and Altadena that started at the beginning of January?
So from a weather standpoint, from a climate standpoint, from an allergy standpoint, we were impacted. I'm actually 15 minutes from the wildfires where my husband and I live. And so we were on alert. We did have bags packed. And after day 2, it was a very stressful week of how the fires were moving around, jumping all over the city. And so knowing how close, but more importantly, all the friends who live in the Altadena, Pasadena area, I think is why we created the Wildfire Fund. Literally the days I'm emailing, texting friends, are you okay? Did your house survive? And then 2 of my closest girlfriends, they lost everything. And one was a former mayor of Pasadena, Jackie Robinson Baisley, and Shamika Gaskin, who used to be the executive director for the Children's Defense Fund in Los Angeles. And so when 2 of your sisters are in crisis, you just go into action and say, okay, what do we do? And thank goodness for our board chairman, Danny Bakewell Sr., and Kathy Hughes from Radio 1, TV 1. The second day as the fires were going on, they had a conversation, and then the next day they looped me into what we needed to do for our people. And I was like, great. Just as COVID, we did $1.2 million in cash to families who we worked with. And so I'm like, this is a crisis. And for us at Brotherhood Crusade, we know if you cannot support your community when you're in a crisis, then why are you here? And literally, we got into action within that. By the end of the week, the fund was up and running. Then the following week, we were making monetary contributions to families. Again, the cash is so important to us because we do appreciate all of the rescue units with clothes and essential water, toiletries, and different things. But for us, that dignity of being able to go and purchase, because when you lose everything, we don't know what people's priorities are. I mean, the letters that I've received from families from losing their wheelchair to losing both cars to losing music equipment that they need for their jobs, you name it. And so we knew, just like we did with COVID, that our goal is to have the fund for 2 years to support families, because we know this is a short term immediately, but really it's a long term of being here to support our families. As we started the fund, we work with Cedric the Entertainer. He's been one of our partners over the years, supporting our work, understanding how we do our work with care and love. And we were on a call, and we said, we need to get vehicles to families in Altadena. And I said, well, this would be great since we're already making monetary contributions. Why don't we go with, like, they had to apply for the car, just some certain standards that they needed to meet, since this, even though it's a gift, you have to have insurance, you have to have a driver's license, and some things that the Fiat dealership needed. And within 3 weeks, as of last Friday, we were able to provide 10 vehicles to Altadena residents who have lost everything. And our goal is to provide another 20 to 30 vehicles over the next couple of months.
Bravo, bravo. Cedric the Entertainer, everybody, and just, wow. That, and even as she said, the importance of those cash payments, the vehicles as well, all of it really, but cash payments, that way it's not directed, where you can only get groceries. Or, I mean, some of these folks lost everything. Everything.
Everything. I couldn't imagine. I mean, I think about what my girlfriends, and even at the car dedication, because both of them, they were part of the group of folks who qualified. They were in the queue early on with us, giving them monetary support, and just the tears and the overwhelm. And we talk about stress and trauma and what triggers, and they both have young kids and all of it. And so you just think about, how can I just be a little goodness in this tragedy? Because that is our goal. I think when all of us have the opportunity to help and serve, we are called to do it. I am very fortunate that we have partners who believe in the work and how we do the work, it's every week. I mean, we've already distributed 70,000. Our fund is up to $500,000. So every dime raised will be going back to residents from the Altadena area, Pasadena area. And so for me, that is like, my gratitude to everyone who knows that our people need support in every way possible. Even we took a group of families to see the musical Obama 44 on Saturday. And it wasn't even opening night. It was dress rehearsal. The play opened on Sunday. So to understand that not only are we providing them, financial support, but just giving them some joy to go out for an evening to just breathe. And so we've taken families to Clipper games from the fire. So we are really looking at a holistic approach, not only the financial support, not only the vehicles, but ways to uplift them when so much, grief and sadness that they are dealing with right now.
Wow. Decals, and again, you can visit the website www.brotherhoodcrusade.org, and you'll see the Brotherhood Crusade Wildfire Relief Fund. All the information right there as soon as you pop on the webpage. If you would like to support lots of non-white people, black residents in SoCal in need of, lost everything. Lots of children impacted by this as well. You talked about you being personally, you all got the alerts and everything, bags packed, we have to evacuate, all the rest of it. As someone who's lived in SoCal for so long, do you all have like a code? Like this sort of thing, I'm sure is not the first time. So when they have wildfires and such, do you all already have like plans? Like, okay, if they have some sort of evacuation, bang, we have our documents together and this, that, and the other. Do you all have a code to deal with this, to kind of minimize the stress when these type of events happen?
Honestly, this was the first time. Honestly, I think even with the folks in Altadena and all the deaths, the tragedies around it because of the alert wasn't provided in ample time. And so no one could have ever predicted in urban Los Angeles, Altadena area, Pacific Palisades, the magnitude of this. And even we had alerts one day that was a false alert. And so that type of stress, I think once you saw the fires on the 7th, you begin to like, what is happening? And even my husband and I, we slept upstairs on the couch. Actually behind where we live is a lot of dry brush. And so that kind of stress, because I don't think, even the first night, people left thinking they're just leaving for the day and they would be back the next day. And they would just go into their homes. People in the Altadena area, they have had alerts prior to the Eaton fire, when we were one of the recipients of the vehicle on Friday. He was sharing, like, I just knew I was going to be home the next day. And he's sharing, like, I left my house with only the clothes on my back. We have nothing. My wife and I have nothing. And even when people are providing brand new clothing and all of that, where are you going to store it? Because more than likely, if you're fortunate to have a family member or someone where you can stay with temporarily, it's temporarily. So how much can you really have at a temporary location? And so navigating through every aspect of the long-term effects, and when you look at it, or one of my friends, she shared, like, I got invited to go somewhere, and I had this dress, and then I realized I had no shoes. I mean, basic, your basic items to live. And for me, these are brilliant Black folks. I mean, from attorneys to doctors to teachers to labor. One of our recipients, part of the Carpenters Union. It no boundaries of the impact of how the Eaton fires have just ravaged homes. The grief, navigating grief. I think, and it's one day you think you might be navigating okay, and then the next day you could just start crying. These are the testimonies. These are folks who we talk to every day, and every application that we have that we've been funding and supporting people, I read every story, and I have to sign off on every story because that, to me, is the urgency of what is needed. And every story, some people say, I just need help to try to find an apartment, first and last. And you're still paying for your mortgage. So that level of relief, hopefully the banks will give some relief. I know the National Urban League, Mark Marriott was here this past Friday with a lot of our financial institutions, because this is such a tragedy that we all have to step up.
Wow. Still paying for your mortgage on a house that has burned down, and now you have to go get an apartment first and last. Maybe a deposit too.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's why the financial support is so needed. Or when you're renting, when you lost both of your vehicles and now you have to Uber or rent a vehicle, costs on top of costs.
I get the impression, now, I don't live in California, as I said, Seattle, Washington resident, proud 206. But I myself, and I get the impression that many others did not grasp that there are a lot of Black people who live in the Altadena area. Like, I think a lot of folks got the initial impression, like, oh, this is Southern California and right, next to LA and everything, Hollywood. It's a lot of white people who have, really expensive mansions on the beach and blah, blah, blah. And now that is true. Some of those people were impacted and lost their house, tragedy, all that. That is true. But there are a lot of Black people that live in Altadena, and even a lot of Black house owners specifically. I'm reading, this is from the Oregon Public Broadcasting, that had a great piece on this. The Black population in Altadena was more than 40% in the 1980s, which staggered me. Like, that is a huge number.
43%.
According to the
43%.
According to the Altadena Historical Society, but today it's fallen to 18% as the neighborhood has become increasingly expensive. The average home is valued at more than $1 million. I guess having been there, can you talk about this transition? Because that is a whopping number of Black people, 43% you said, and then in roughly 40 years or so, now it's down to 8, and this is before the fire, down to 18%.
18%, yeah. It has declined. Gentrification is everywhere. I think if you know the Altadena area is just one of the most beautiful communities in our. You have the mountains as your backdrop. You have families, 5 family members who might live within a 2-block radius. It is prime real estate. And if you love trees and, like to walk and you like to be social, it is a community that has everything from restaurants, if you're just going down to Pasadena, but even your local businesses. And so it is it is a community that, you know, just beautiful and lovely. And other people know that. And when other people know that, they want to come into the neighborhood. And it's unfortunate and it's sad, even with, it's an older population as well, many seniors, and many of the seniors have passed down their homes to their children. And so a lot of seniors have sold their homes. And so it is one of those areas that the people who are there, that 18% is a strong 18%. It is. If you see the reports, if you see the news, if you see just the support, I mean, from the churches to everyone galvanizing, coming together. And we look at numbers sometimes, and I like to tell people, even if you look at that 18%, it's more than probably most states of that population living in a community. And so it is tough to see it drop so drastically, but it's still such a strong Black community.
The C.O.W.S, again, CEO and president of the Brotherhood Crusade, Miss Charisse Bremond, 20 years on the job. The resiliency that she talked about with the people who were there, and in fact, that was one of the first things that I noted with, they started giving reports, and I've been hesitant because I do see reports that say 29 fatalities resulted from these wildfires, or at least is the wording that's frequently used, because they're not really sure in terms of, who knows, in terms of how all this, before it's really over. But at least 29 people have perished. And when they started presenting images of those who've passed away, many of them were older Black people. And I started looking at some of these stories. Mr. Nickerson, for example, where they named Nickerson Gardens after him, one of the oldest housing projects in this part of the world, unless I'm mistaken. But he's an older Black male. And now, remember what Miss Bremond, she told us they had all these hectic alerts and fake alerts, I guess, where evacuating, and it turns out you're not supposed to. You got all that stress. If you're in your 80s or 90s, you have any mobility issues, maybe you drive, maybe you don't. And that's what it looked like. A lot of those people who perished, they were in that bracket, 80s, 90s, maybe a little bit older, living by themselves. Maybe they got the alert. Maybe they just didn't want to leave their property and risk, losing everything at that age. But I know that's what I saw. You're at ground level. Is that your impression?
It's a combination. Yeah. I mean, and one of the sadder stories where you had two people who were disabled, and two son and father who were both disabled in a house, who lost their lives, and the could not get out. They said that they could only take one out, and so of course they wouldn't leave. They both. What are you saying? What, that you can't take both out in this emergency fire? And it's a combination. The stories, and because some of the stories you're listening to by the news and reading the paper, it's their home. They live there all of their lives. And like I said, so many people thought that the fires weren't as serious as they were. The misinformation, where people did not get the alert till very late that evening. And so that's why the report that the county investigation of all of this will be so important for all of us to learn from. And again, when you look at 29 deaths, and the majority of them are Black people, you just have to pause. It should not ever have happened that we are losing life to fires in this kind of way. One loss is too many.
Amen. Amen. I think the victims she referenced, father and son, Anthony Mitchell Sr. and his son Justin. I think that's who she's referencing. He had cerebral palsy. Black male, because I think we had talked about that case before, because he's older, Mr. Mitchell, and then he didn't want to leave. He didn't want to leave his son. He kept emphasizing that he didn't want to leave his son. That's, I understand that logic. You don't have to explain that at all. And they both ended up perishing in the blaze. I mean, specifically with the, and you talked about, you said racial gentrification. I use the term racial dislocation, and deliberately displacing black people. And even in fact, the reason, unless I've been misinformed, that so many, 43% of the residents in Altadena were black. We're talking 1980s, maybe early 1990s, just before the Rodney King riots. The reason was because of racism, white supremacy, where black people were not allowed to just move willy-nilly into other parts of Los Angeles, so they ended up being funneled into this part of Altadena. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah. They couldn't buy in Pasadena. And so they could buy in Altadena, and many black folks bought in Altadena. And so that's, beautiful homes, beautiful people, communities, families, just a community of love. And they made it their own. That's what black people do. So we understand all of it. And so it's just now the rebuild of how and hopefully a lot of older people, we have to convince them not to sell their land and their property, because the offers are coming in. We do know, it was actually probably 10 days ago, someone sold their land for $449,000. And it's devastating when you hear that, of understanding. I don't know all the background behind it, but it's just devastating when you know the value of the property and you sold it for $449,000.
Help us for those of us who are outside the Southern California real estate market. They've had so many conversations. Governor Gavin Newsom spoke about predatory offers where people are going really to loot these victims of the wildfires, and hey, we'll pay cash for your property and that sort of thing, and offering them way below market value. For some of us might hear, wow, $449,000. That's, a ton of money. And especially the property is burned down. So, I mean, it might not even be any sort of structure there. Is $449,000, is that market value for this sort of property, even if the structure is burned down?
Well, they don't have the market value right now. That's the issue. And so you started the conversation of homes selling for $1 million plus in the Altadena area. So you can only imagine that you don't have comps in the area right now, but I'm sure that the $449 is a very low offer.
I've heard that sort of with the fire sale. That's what they call, almost a cliche. I've heard that with black property owners repeatedly throughout history. And in fact, the report, Altadena residents sift through calls to sell, but the soul is not for sale. This report was in the LA Sentinel a few weeks ago. The loss might be hard to stop. After burning for 24 straight days, the Eden fire was only fully contained on the last day of January, and in recent weeks, residents say the offers are already streaming in to buy property. In some cases, those offers are coming via unsolicited phone calls and text messages One of those messages from a phone number with a San Diego zip code read, "Do you own that property? Are you maybe interested in selling it? We're offering cash. The land is coveted, burned or not." The median home price in Altadena before the fires, to her point, was $1.4 million. So if I read the report earlier, it said $1 million. I guess I was off by about $500,000. So I guess you can take that again. So if the median price is $1.4 million and they offer you $449,000. The community at the foot of the San Gabriel Mountains, which has been an enclave for black families, artists, and regular blue-collar workers for decades. Now, I guess it would be difficult to weigh this in terms of, you said this was the first time that you personally have gotten evacuation alert, like, oh, wow, you and your husband, we might have to leave. This is a first for you. For this region, I think for some people, it is not, that this is an area where they've said, hey, they've had fires, the Santa Ana winds, this region, they've had this sort of thing for decades, I guess, maybe even longer than that. And even beyond that, moving forward, this may become a regular event. If I'm a black person, how do you process that? Do you think, as someone who lives here, do you think, uh-oh, this might be a new normal? We might have these sort of events every, 5-6 years or so.
I do believe it's probably the new normal. Climate change, winds, all of it, everything that is happening. And so I think how they rebuild, what type of, how they build the house to sustain, like, folks who have these different systems now, technology, that will, I don't want to say support fires, nothing will ever support fires, but there are some systems that to use during the new build will help. But again, so many things around what we're learning through fires with our utility companies, of what utility companies need to do in advance to ensure that some of this is mitigated.
I have seen lots of reports talking about that, and if this is going to be more of a consistent pattern moving forward because of changes in weather patterns, man-made or not, different ways of building, even limiting the numbers of people who are allowed to reside in a certain area so things don't get too congested. If you do have to have an evacuation, the roads aren't jammed, and that sort of things, to rebuild in a stable manner. It's so many layers to process on the, can we stay, can we rebuild in a sustainable manner? Are they going to support a rebuild, for us to come back in a way that, will make sense for everyone involved? In fact, before I even get into some of those other details and the impact on children, make sure that we have all the details so that folks can support you all to get the rest of these vehicles, maybe more, at least 20, 30 more vehicles, and the fun. When folks go to the webpage, www.brotherhoodcrusade.org, when they go to the webpage, first thing they should see information for the Brotherhood Crusade Wildfire Relief Fund. What do they need to do specifically if they want to help you all doing this amazing work to support black victims of the fires?
They just click the link and make a donation. And so you have two ways on the website, because if you're navigating and you see like our programs, but everything during the next year, we have decided that even if you're looking at wanting to support our programs, it will go to the Wildfire Fund. So that we just want to make it easy so we could get as much support to families as possible. I mean, from if it's $5 to $500, it will make a difference. Every dollar will be going to our families.
The website, again, www.brotherhoodcrusade.org. should see the link right in there. Partnership with the LA Sentinel for the Brotherhood Crusade Wildfire Relief Fund. And she said all of the donations, contributions for the next year, all going to the wildfire victims. So I'm sure that any amount that you can contribute, she said $1 to $1 million, every bit helps, and all of it going to the wildfire victims. Lots of black people in the area would super appreciate your support. I guess, like I said, now processing all of this, moving forward, it seems like you do, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. So it seems like you do think that climate change, regardless of how it is happening, you do think that that is legitimate?
We see it all over the world. I mean, yes, the 70-mile per winds and stronger. No one could have predicted that type of wind, not only throughout the city. I mean, trees and toppling. I mean, it is, when we look at in what happened in North Carolina with the floods, I mean, it's everywhere. You got hurricanes in states that never had hurricanes. And so we all should be paying attention to climate change. We all should be looking at doing our part, to try to combat it. I mean, because it's real. If you watch the news, if you live in certain parts, extreme weather in Texas, I mean, it's all over. It is all over.
That is my conclusion as well. That was my conclusion while I was visiting California prior to the wildfires, just looking at the coastline. I said, man, there's no way I could live in Malibu, because I looked during the wildfires and I said, you have to go to meetings there about the sea level rise, because that is a big problem. I said that when I was there. And then you also have to go to the wildfire meetings. Like, woo, I cannot do it. I can visit. Extreme events, both.
Extreme.
And how is that? How can it be both sea level and wildfire? Like, it seems like it should be one, not the other. No, both in Malibu. Moving forward with all of that, that's why I said, like, oh my goodness, it seems so daunting. I don't know, Octavia Butler, like sci-fi daunting almost. Even with the
it's stressful. I mean, right after the fires, we had the rain and worried about the floods and the overflow of the muds. And, I mean, it is a lot to manage. It is, because you're on pins and needles. You go through one extreme to now here's another extreme, and even having 80+ degree weather, and then I think it's supposed to rain next week. So yeah.
Wow. Wow, that is stressful, as she said. Now, one thing that I encourage for stress is deep breathing. I groused about the air quality the entire time I was in Los Angeles in November. I have no idea what I would be saying if I had been there in January, or even now, based on the reports that have come out. Now, you said how have you been personally impacted? I think you said maybe your husband have allergies. So has breathing been an issue?
Oh no, I'm wearing a mask.
Oh, smart.
I think when you kind of understand when you have I have severe allergies. And so the ash environment, yes. So that's my way of dealing with it, is to make sure I'm trying the best I can to take care of my own health, understanding that we've had bad air for a long time, the smog and everything else. And so we know that our air quality was not the greatest before the fires. But more importantly, I think for, concerns that how residents get back into their homes because the federal government does not want to do the soil testing. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, they're not doing the soil testing that would confirm the amount of toxics. And so it's a lot. And how will the homeowners take care of even this part of it? Because you can't build if you know your property is still toxic. And that's part of the environment. And what does that look like, even when you're doing a cleanup?
That has been staggering to me. I am not a scientist, and I've not lived in California. Well, I did live in California, but I lived in Northern California, and I don't remember us having any wildfires while I was there. So I'm very ignorant about all of this. But seeing the reports that have been coming out over the past month, and UCLA did a whole study about just all of the poisons that can end up being in the air, soil,
and get in the soil. That's the thing. The contaminants. We're doing a community garden project at our building, and we have extensive testing. And we're going to launch it. We're actually getting the contractors now to start this amazing project for our community. But if we're doing this because we know that our health and safety environment, we have to know. How do you not do this testing?
Excellent question. And I have seen so many, not the water, air, soil, what's to be done with the debris removal, because they said a lot of that is toxic and it's got carcinogenic materials. Where is that going to be stored? Is it going to be tested? And as she said, in a lot of cases, they said, we're going to try and rebuild Speedy and move. It's like, well, wait a minute. Like, this might be dangerous. And even, where is this going to be stored?
Hazardous.
Absolutely. I mean, they had a report today in the newspaper. They were talking specifically about the water. This is the LA Times. Utilities in both Eden and Palisades fire burn scars have reported detecting the carcinogen benzene
coming up in the ocean. Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am. The state regulators have recommended that utilities issue do not drink and do not boil notices, which still permit residents to use water for showers, hand washing, laundry, and other daily activities. Now, you want to talk about stress. You go through all of this, and you got to be, is this Flint? Like, oh, man. Have you had those sort of concerns, even just personally, to make sure that your water is safe to drink or you cook with or whatever?
Well, I'm old school. I use bottled water to cook with, and for my coffee. I don't know if my parents knew something that I didn't know, but they use bottled water. So I am a creature of my parents. It's like, the apple don't fall too far from the tree. Mm-hmm. So it's quite interesting. So, but that is not what should happen. You should be able to drink your water in any home that you live in without having to purchase bottled water, because that is not a cost that no one should have to do that with. It's just a cost. The affordability of buying, like I said, I know I should be drinking our water out of the tap, but I'm a bottled water person. I'm very honest and transparent. So
give one more shout out again. We started this program, Mr. Walter Bremond, and your mother. You want to name your mommy? Give a shout out to both parents.
Yeah, my mother, Bertha Bremond. She was an educator. She was a teacher. And so I honestly think I my father a philanthropist, my mother educator, and just beautiful souls. My parents, they just lived a life with not only a care for us, me and my brothers, but how they poured into others. And I think from a humanity standpoint, I got it honestly. It is my happy place when I am serving others, when I get to give back, when I get to just help people in a way that I know I am who I am, not only because of my parents, but all of the people in their circle who had an influence on me. I had access, and not access from a finance standpoint. I had access from mentorship. I had access of so many people pouring into me, exposing me to so much that it's why we do trauma-informed youth development, because how my parents poured into me, we pour into young people. And so that type of care changes the narrative of how you see yourself and how you see the world, that you know at a very young age that you can do anything. You have to have support, and you have to have hard work, and you have to be accountable. It's not going to just come to you because I think I'm going to be a doctor. Well, you need to work. You need to start in middle school about your grades and being disciplined, and how are you serving, and how are you giving, and how do you care about community. And if you have lived with parents who that has been their philosophy as long as I can remember, and just for me, of looking at my mentors, Marguerite Archie Hudson, she was an assemblywoman who I worked for in the 48th Assembly. Karen Earl, who runs a domestic violence shelter in Los Angeles, one of my mentors. From Lillian Mobley, who one of the fiercest advocates of our time in South LA, to Mary Henry when I was right out of college and we didn't have cell phones, and I came to give a presentation. I'll never forget it. I was 22 years of age, and I was 5 minutes late. This is when we did not have cell phones. And she said, "Oh, Charisse, you stay back after the meeting." She called Mr. Bakewell, and she said, "What are you teaching her in our community? You know, she does never get to show up late." What? She was like, "What the hell is going on?" And literally, I thought I was getting ready to get fired right out of college. But to understand that type of love that someone has for you, of how you show up for your community, you're not to ever be late. And so even now, my staff knows I've locked people out of meetings for being late, because time is everything. And if you don't respect our community's time, you shouldn't be working in it. And so life lessons for me, not just from my parents, but like I said, from community leaders who just poured into me to understand that if you're going to do this work, you don't get to have to it.
Now, Cal's listeners know I love that one. Anytime we get black people talking about punctuality and respecting the time of black people, woo, standing ovation. You are hitting my sweet spot now, Miss Bremond. My goodness. If I could respectfully, the only thing, when you tell that story in the future, since you have done such an amazing job with your self-care, and you and your husband taking care of yourselves and everything, and sounding like a teenager, just leave out, this was before cell phones. You do not even need to date yourself like that at all. Just give them the story in that way. They're like, "Oh, wow, she must be like 20 years old or something. This happened. Wow, she graduated back." And no problem. Right, and it would still work, because the main point is be on time. Respect the time of black people. Really. Respect black people's time. Oh.
Yes. I live by it. I live by it. Yes. it is ingrained in me. And it was all done out of love and care and how I show up and what kind of leader would I be one day. They saw something in me before I even saw it in myself. And I think it is such a huge gift when people just pour into you. And how do we pour into others? Because the more we pour into others, and it just makes us better. It makes all of us better. If you don't know something, I still learn. I tell people, we are a learning institution that in order to be here another 50 years, we better learn and grow and change, or, be nimble, be flexible, but never forget our history of what we stand on. But how do we grow and how do we continue to serve our people?
CEO and president of the Brotherhood Crusade, Ms. Charisse Bremond. The address again, www.brotherhoodcrusade.org. If you have a question you would like to ask any of our California folks, questions you would like to ask, how you can help them get more cars to black wildfire victims, drop us a line or a question, 605-313-5164, the code 564943, pound, press star 61 if you would like to participate. I know I've been paying attention to all of this, and our president just came out to California to survey the damage, and seemed like he even did some criticizing of your governor and saying we got to speed up and hurry up the recovery effort. We can't be lollygagging and getting all this taken care of and rebuilding in Southern California. Did his visit have any impact on improving conditions for people?
If anyone who knows who that person is, the answer would be no. The disrespect of not only he has for California, the disrespect he has for black folks, nothing he does would ever surprise me. So at this point, I think he's 30 days in that position. And so every day is like, what's next? And so it's just, I think you have to, how do you get the things you need to get done? Hopefully he will not deviate from when President Biden earmarked the $40 billion to California, but you never know.
That is true. You never know. You never know.
You never know.
What's your opinion of how Governor Newsom, I just said President Trump has been very critical of the way he's responded to the wildfires. What's your opinion of Governor Newsom's response to all of this thus far?
I think Governor Newsom, he has been right on point. He has been immediately advocating to get the resources to the families in Eaton, the families in Palisades. I think moving so quickly to get stuff passed, to support the families and businesses in record time, even working the Assembly. It's a bill coming up that he is supporting. It's called Assembly Bill 1032 to help people dealing with loss and grief, where they will be able to have mental health support to be covered under their insurance, 12 visits for families who have been impacted by both fires. And so, again, just doing his part. He's been to Altadena, he's been to Palisades on several occasions, done tours, as well as supporting our mayor, Karen Bass, from the Palisades. And so, this has to be a holistic approach, and it does start, unfortunately, with resources from the federal to the state to local. And so we are, for me, very fortunate that I do live in the state of California that has a governor who understands equity and just resources coming back.
I'm laughing because she said, Miss Bremond, she says she's lucky she lives in California and has a Governor Gavin Newsom, who understands the importance of equity and trying to be helpful and rebuilding. And he actually did visit Altadena and Palisades. My understanding, President Trump, he just visited Pasadena. He did not visit Altadena, where you have a large population of black people, but maybe didn't have time. But I was snickering.
Yeah, maybe.
Don't be snide, Miss Bremond. I heard that. Don't be slick now.
I'm a truth. We're truth people. I don't have to. You're giving the data. We know what's happening when we talk about equity and inclusion, and we talk about who we are as a people. We're not. Nobody's giving us anything. Let's be clear. So you could try to frame it however you want to frame it, but we aren't asking for a handout. This is, if you look at every disaster of support and what is needed to build back cities, you do it because it's the right thing to do.
Doing the right thing. Kind of rare. But I was snickering about Governor Newsom because I said, dang, I thought they tried to recall him not that long ago. Like, obviously he did survive it because he's still governor, but I mean, they did try to recall Governor Newsom. That was like 2 years ago, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It was.
Probably.
But again, same people and the gimmicks in the narrative, and so if you keep telling your truth, people will see the truth. Not always, but at least in California. So.
Right on. Before I nab one of our callers, you mentioned the trauma-informed youth development program that you all have at the Brotherhood Crusade. And all of the trauma is a word we've mentioned so many times this evening as well, with the wildfire victims and what they have experienced, and the stress of all this, even if they didn't lose a house. Do you all have access to black therapists, black counselors for some of these programs?
We do. Wow. We do. We work with Amada. They are black psychological therapists. We've been working with them for 15 years now. They are housed in one of our buildings twice a week, knowing just how trauma can bubble up with our young people, young adults. We started our partnership. We do young women and young men retreats, and part of our retreats, we do these healing circles. And I remember the second year when we did our retreat, one of our men's retreat, I was like, we need therapists in the healing circle because some things might bubble up that we're not ready to manage. And ever since that, we've written them in I write them in my grants. So to ensure that we have culturally competent therapists. But more importantly, because they're housed in our building, our students are not intimidated when they engage with them. And that healing is so critical of them transitioning as they move from adulthood to college, jobs, that we know that unresolved trauma could just paralyze communities.
That is spectacular. Wow. Just amazing work. I mean, was it difficult?
Thank you.
Was it difficult for you all to access black therapists for these programs, or not too much trouble?
Well, once we were connected, Dr. Williamson and Dr. Tarver, and they have a team. I think they might have a team of 12. It's grown though, so my numbers could be off. Once he saw the way we do trauma-informed youth development, they were like, sign us up. and because it was aligned, again, I think, when you have certain value systems, your core values of how you serve, but doing it in a holistic approach, it was like a great marriage of like, we have young people who we know they need support. As much support as we are doing with them, we know when some of our students need some real mental health support. And so, again, it's just grown each year of how, and even our young people having access, as well as my team. We provide our team that they have up to 10 sessions with them if they need it, because you can't talk about helping your community, but you're not engaging your team members with the same support. And so we've had staff members who have utilized part of them as part of one of our health benefits.
Wow. Just bravo. That is, wow. Amazing work right there with the Brotherhood Crusade. We use the word trauma so much, and to have therapists right there, access for the employees and young people, just wow. I am speechless. The Brotherhood Crusade. Go to the website, www.brotherhoodcrusade.org. Linked in the description, posted on social media as well. I'll share again so you can invest and then see more of their great programs that they've already done, and then more to come. Let's see. Victim. If you had a question for Miss Bremond, you should be with us.
May I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Gus, for taking my call, and greetings to Miss Bremond. I just want to say I truly appreciate all the effort that you and your organization has been sponsoring for the Dina family. I have a couple distant relatives who are actually currently dealing with the fire, so I just want to thank you on their behalf. My question was, you said a second ago that Governor Newsom has been helping out with some of the, I guess, support when it came to helping families. What do you make of how the governor has handled some of the homelessness issue that has been affecting California or LA for quite some time?
Yeah, the homeless, houseless it's a crisis. And I think resources are there in the budget. I mean, especially with the city of Los Angeles as well as the county. It's so interesting because so many of the people on the streets have mental health challenges. So even when we're offering, and I say we because you want to get folks off the street, it is it's one of the saddest things of growing up in our city, and I see it. And where my building where I'm housed, I have a street that we have, even when we clean it up, a week later, the folks who are on the streets are back on the streets. And so, again, this is a holistic approach of how do we care for the homeless with care and dignity, and how do you cannot mandate someone to get help when they don't want to get help. And I hope that, legislation one day will look at really how do we best heal folks who have mental health in ways that we could never imagine. And anytime you're on the street in severe rain, cold, heat, and you've not had access to showers, you've not had access to the support that is really needed to get you off of the street. Again, it takes all of us. The resources have been allocated to the city and the county. And so it's not based on the funding. It's, again, how are we, especially the hardest to serve who's been on the streets for so long, of what is the best plan of action for them. And so, there has to be a way we can do this. Even we have many campers that are non-operable, that folks are living in those campers. And so we're even, our city and county is looking at land where we could try to create some safety zones. So if they are in campers that are non-operable, that, again, how are we doing it with care and service, and not, as I know, I'm on the street, that I'm calling my city every week, we need a cleanup, where we have residents on one side, and they don't feel safe right now. And so it's going to take all of us, because no one could have imagined that the amount of people on the streets, and this really, you saw the change about 8 years ago. And for me to be in Los Angeles all of my life, basically, you've watched it spiral. I mean, from COVID to people losing their jobs, the cost of living in Los Angeles is not affordable to many. And so one bad, from losing your job to your car breaking down, can put you on the streets because of our costs of housing. And so there are things that I do know that our elected officials are looking at, of trying to ensure that we have more Section 8 certificates to also allow people in housing. And then even I'm on the board of the Weingart Center, which is a nonprofit that does only housing for the homeless. And we've continued to build out our housing for the population. And so we need more advocates like Kevin Murray, who's running a stellar nonprofit to house people and to get more housing that's affordable. I hope I answered it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much for such a detailed response. I appreciate that. And you also said earlier you were here during a time prior to all the changes. What do you make of, or what do you think of California now, or LA now, since they passed bills that made marijuana recreational? Do you think things prior to that changed, or do you think that in association with everything that's going on, is making California worse? And that'll be my final question. I thank you for your time.
Yeah, I think legalizing marijuana was the right thing to do. That's me personally. I'm not speaking for my board. I think if you have alcohol that is legal, I think it has actually the work around cannabis has been slow to actually get up and running. And I don't know all of the ins and outs around the regulations of folks getting their licenses. There's a whole underground world of selling marijuana. So people are going to purchase marijuana no matter what. And so I think legalizing it to ensure that there are systems in place that can protect consumers would be the right thing to do. And that's just me personally.
Much obliged. Victim. I blame all the cannabis problems on Dr. Dre anyway, so yeah. Let's see. *61 other folks if they have a question they would like to get in. What I don't know if you study social science in LA and do reports and such, but do you have a theory on exactly what took place approximately 8 years ago that caused such a drastic shift for the worst in the greater LA area?
You know, I think when you ignore the problem thinking that the problem is not there, and then as it's amplified, it's almost like when you have a small problem and you address that problem, you're going to have better results. When I look over the past 8 years, I think some people ignored that we had the crisis that we were having. So now we are in a time, like I said, I mean, COVID alone, what happened, devastation around folks losing their jobs, around not making a choice of not going to work because you had to take care of your kids. And so I think it's so many layers. We have great weather most of the time. So people coming to Los Angeles of thinking like I can make it and not having a plan. But the mental health piece right now of just knowing by the work that we do with young people, it's at an all-time level. And if you have a mental health breakdown and you have no resources, and then you lose that job because of mental health or triggers, what is going to happen? And I've seen it. I've seen it with folks who I know, and it spirals. And if you don't have family support to lean on, you're in trouble in Los Angeles. As I love my city, I love the people. But that kindness and grace of how we take care of even our seniors and folks who are sick, I don't know what has happened, honestly, because there is a disconnect.
Woo. Thank you kindly for that comprehensive response, because I will tell you, just that part that she shared just right there, when I was in Los Angeles, I was only in LA for 8 days. I was spent the vast majority of my trip, I was in San Francisco. But those 8 days, oh man, I told some of our C.O.W.S listeners in Los Angeles, I said, man, this place feels so dangerous and unsafe. Oh, and I live in Seattle, which is not, known as a bastion of safety.
Right.
And all the rest.
Right.
But, woo, I said, man, I really feel like something really bad could happen, and I would end up selling oranges in front of the Intuit Dome. And I was telling people this, and they were laughing, like, stop saying that, Gus. That is stupid, and you're not going to be selling oranges, and stop saying I was like, no. Exactly what she just said. This is not the place you want to be to have any sort of crisis, mental health breakdown, lose a job, anything like that, and you don't have family to Dodgers win the World Series and they riot. Oh, my God. Oh, I thought I was going to have to call Alyssa. Can I hide under your porch for a few days until they come down so I can get my flight out? Oh, my God. L.A. is not a place you want to be without a plan or a support system. And even then, might not be sufficient. Oof, man.
Might not be. And so if you think, I tell the story every time one of my parents' friends lost their job or something. They were going through something. They could live at our house for months. And everybody was either an aunt or an uncle to me. And so I'm like, we always had someone who, if they had a crisis, they come and live with us. And I'm like, the communities are different, but some of us are the same. You know, I'm like, yeah, no, we got to bring them in. What do they need? How do we put them up? For some of us. But some people, they have these blinders on. And I think you said it, that sometimes people are so fearful now that they don't see the person. That their fear of like, oh, I can't help them, you know, it's so interesting because we've had a young person. He's been with our program in and out. He, like, let's just say 8 years. I'm probably 8 years. And he came to our center. Now I have a new team member at one of my centers. And he's high, but he's being a little belligerent. And they kicked him out. And I was like, you guys kicked, I can't say his name. What are you talking about? Do you know how long he's been with us? And then I'm like, you need to have him come to the center so I can meet him there. But my team was so fearful, they didn't know how to respond. And then I get there, and then they see him hugging me, and they're like, I said, this is one of our kids. I know he probably should not have been swearing when he came in here, but he's one of our kids. So what is the plan to help him so he's not on the streets? And so I was like, oh my God, this is not good. Like, you kicked him out and he was down on his luck. But that's why he came back. He came back because we are a safe haven. And if your safe haven doesn't want to support you anymore, again, you're going to be on the street. It's a lot.
To live and die in L.A., indeed. That I even had to pause for that. Now, I groused about the air in Los Angeles prior to the wildfires. Now, pause for all of the black and non-white people in L.A. who are unhoused. Where do you go when there's an evacuation and you are unhoused? Where do you go? In fact, all those air quality advisories, I'm sure they got some unhoused people who had asthma. Where do you go when you're unhoused and they have air quality alerts? Phew, man, you mentioned your youth program. What has been the impact that you've seen with these wildfires on the black children that you all serve? Because they had schools that burned down and schools that closed, and they had reports it was like hundreds of thousands of non-white children in the area that, you know, got displaced or couldn't go to school or whatever. What's been the impact on
going
children?
back to school on Zoom? Well, we know through COVID, the mental health and the learning decreases at a very high rate for young black children. I mean, we know it. They need to be in school. They need to be connected to teachers, connected to their friends and their support system. And the long term of helping young people manage this is going to be critical. I mean, we're even looking at possibly opening offices in the Altadena area, looking at our capacity, just because we've gotten so many calls, because so many people know the way we do our work with young people in Inglewood and South LA has been transformative. And looking at really that, it's interesting. One of my friends, she has 2 kids, a younger son, and a teenage daughter. And the teenage daughter has been coping by journaling and expressing her feelings. But the younger kids, they don't know how to express what they're feeling. And this could have, devastating impact for years. And so helping folks to understand how, even we're looking at doing a roundtable with young people out there to get the information of, we love engaging our community, our stakeholders, so young people are stakeholders, of really saying what would you need to thrive after the fires? And because they're very clear, even a 9-year-old can articulate the things that they can articulate their fears without saying that they have fears of this, because they're just articulating what they want to see. And so understanding that the younger kids for weeks did not want to leave their parents' side, that stress and trauma where the fire impacted, and I've talked to a couple of friends who have younger kids, they have lost everything. So you think of young kids who had a favorite toy or something, their safety net, blanket, something that they always felt safe when they're in their room, they have this. And now they have nothing. They don't have their home. They don't have their favorite toys. They don't have their favorite friend next door. And so understanding how are we supporting young people through this, this is a journey as well. Because we pour into young people so much. We are in schools and we're also out of school, but the bulk of the development that our young people is really the access to everything that we do. Young people are a part of it. Even in our meetings, when they're meeting with, if I'm meeting with foundation leaders, I have young folks in that space with me. We do mock cocktail parties for our young people where we have corporate executives that come into the space. Our young people have traveled to space camp in Huntsville, Alabama, and tagged on the civil rights trip, a part of that, for the last 5 years. So we know how to engage young people in a way that people are like, your kids are going where? They're doing what? And then they meet with elected officials around policy issues that they know that needs to be either changed or they would like to see things that would support their growth and development. And so understanding that we work with young people from 9 to really 29 now, that will probably be something that we will be doing in 2026, because I have to be very clear, if we are going into Altadena, that we are going in with all the bells and whistles that we do in Inglewood and in South LA.
The C.O.W.S, again, CEO, president of the Brotherhood Crusade, our guest, Miss Charisse Bremond, Miss Charisse Bremond. And that is, man, just, I was staggered because I want to go to space camp. Dang. They're like 2 time zones away for people, other parts of the world or whatever. Alabama is not close to California at all.
No, a week. Our kids last summer went to Mexico City. 3 of our students went to Ghana.
Dang.
No, they are, and these are high school students, and then now they're all thriving. We have students. We are supporting 57 of our students with 4-year scholarships now. I mean, from Syracuse to Berkeley to Morehouse, we have students all over the states now. And so I told people, part of our strategic plan, I said, it's not enough to get them in college. They all need to get out of college. And so that's that part of my evolution of our model of like, okay, we're getting them in college now. This was always our goal for our students to all graduate from high school, and now their mindset has changed so much. They're, like I said, they're in colleges everywhere. So we have monthly check-ins with them. We have 2 college career ambassadors who work with our students to ensure that they are getting support while they're in college, because they are everywhere. And so, you know, as well as now 3 of our former students work for us. And so that gives me a lot of joy, you know, to see young people who we supported, and now they're leaders in our institution. It's, very proud to say that.
Job well done. Wow. That is, man, see them all the way through, not just get there, all the way through to get that degree. That is job well done. I guess one, just since we did mention the Rodney King looting and all that, looting actually did crop up as an important part of the current wildfires. Did you see the arrest of the white woman, Karen Masti? She had on the Palisades Strong T-shirt. She got arrested over the weekend. She was going out and looting houses.
Oh, I missed that.
They had that.
I did not see that.
L.A. Times and a few other places. Like, they got a mugshot of her with her Palisades Strong shirt on, and they had a few of these really interesting looter cases, because they had one where it was a duo, male and a female. They were impersonating firefighters. They had a fake fire truck.
I saw that one. Yes.
Oh my God.
This is insane. It is. It is insane. You know, I'm glad our new city attorney has changed the laws where to prosecute at a higher level, which I do believe in rehabilitation, and everybody don't need to be prosecuted, but in this case they need to be prosecuted and ensure that there are consequences when you are trying to take advantage of people who have lost everything.
Here. Like, I don't want to hear nothing else. I know Rodney King, Watts neither, for that matter. Like, what?
Yeah.
Went out to go loot during a wildfire? Come in with a fake fire truck? Like, come on.
Yeah. But I'm telling you, I'm like, what is going on with people? And that's where I'm like, I don't know, this psychic of like, you think you're entitled. I don't know, but I'm like, this is ridiculous. It is ridiculous.
Tell me about it. Like, there is looting, and then there's looting. Before we let you enjoy the rest of your evening, or really, you all have so much work to do. There's who has time to enjoy? It's work.
It has been a busy couple of weeks, because I'm like, not like I don't have like all the other things that I have to do as well as the fun now, but that's God's purpose. Honestly, I am truly honored that we get to help our people. I just, during this time, and I just go back to my own self, how do I start over if I had nothing? And it's like you spiritually having a lot of support right now for everyone, because everyone is hurting. That pain, I feel my friends' pain. Like, I can't. When I knew they lost everything, I am crying with them, because they have worked so hard all of their life to get to this place of like, I'm a homeowner. I work hard. I'm taking care. I'm serving. They work with me and volunteered at Brotherhood Crusade. And you're like, what? what do you need? And that is, I think, the one positive that people are stepping up. People are stepping up in ways to say, even if it's a little or if it's a lot, to help family members, to help loved ones, or if they're not loved ones, to help community in a time where, like I said, I could not imagine losing everything. And if I did, I would. It's hard too, because people who have had and worked so hard, they're not accustomed to asking for help. That is also part of the mental health piece. Like, I can't do this part by myself. So that's where, I always say we are all part of the village right now. That even if we don't know them personally, that we have to be part of this larger village to ensure that they know they are not forgotten during this difficult time.
I saw that they had that report. I believe it was with the LA Sentinel, who is partnering with the Brotherhood Crusade. Yep, LA Sentinel. They reported that black residents feared that they would be erased, not heard, throughout this process, the recovery and all that with the wildfires in California. That is the exact work that the Brotherhood Crusade is doing to prevent the erasure of black residents, victims of the California wildfires. Visit their website, brotherhoodcrusade.org. Brotherhood, www.brotherhoodcrusade.org. Support, invest in their efforts. We had talked about it before. I don't know, I guess my thinking, I can't say it's different, but I mean, it's slightly different context now, given what's happened with the wildfires. California has had, I think, about 2, maybe even 3 years at this point, of discussion and investigation around reparations for black descendants of slavery, black American descendants of slavery specifically. And so they've been going back and forth, even though they've had many reports that have said the vast majority of people classified as white in California do not support such a bill. And I mean, I've said for years, if you think they were about to recall Gavin Newsom before, oh boy, let him mess around and start giving out checks for reparations to black people exclusively. Whew, buddy. What now? Because it would seem this might even factor in with the reparations discussion for black people.
Yeah, the state was moving in a very positive way around the reparation, and I still don't know the full story. It was actually the Black Caucus that pulled the bill. So it never got to the governor. Our black elected officials pulled it. And because I work with many of them, not sure of all the politics of why the bill got pulled. And the discussion, this was last year, so it's supposed to be reintroduced this year. And so I don't know where we are in that process.
They have a few reports just within the last couple of days, ABC 10, that the California Legislative Black Caucus, they've, like, literally just within the last 48 hours, they've unveiled their 2025 reparations bill package. So we'll have to see.
There you go. We'll have to see. I've not done my research yet to see how this bill is that different from last year's bill.
I'd have to, yeah.
They pulled it. So they pulled it, but I'm glad you're sharing. And I did not know that I knew they said they were going to reintroduce it. So I'm happy to know that they, based on what you're sharing with me, that it is being reintroduced. So
we'll have to follow, I guess, for this year to see, does it get any traction and all that. I'd be curious to know too, like what was the reasoning, if they can share, like, I guess if they plan to what was the reasoning for why it was pulled that time, and what's the difference between the two bills, all that good stuff. But we can follow along and see, and if the wildfires and the number of black people that were impacted, if that will help spur momentum or no, we'll have to see. I guess does the Brotherhood Crusade, do you all address racism directly in your organization?
Well, I would say we live that we are a Black-led institution, and our purpose, we serve community, but we know what racism looks like. We call it out when we need to call it out. And so I have an amazing board of directors, as I shared, Dan Bakewell, who has been fighting for social justice all of his life that I can remember, is our board chairman. And so I'm very fortunate that I have a board that advocates when things are wrong for Black folks. We know how to address it in all different aspects.
Right on. Do you all have an institutional definition or framework, like when you call out racism, when you go to address these problems that are impacting Black people specifically? Do you all have a definition for the concept racism? Like when we say racism, this is what we mean here at the Brotherhood Crusade?
We don't have a policy, a standard language. I will actually bring that back to my board since it was brought to me. And I probably, because we've just always operated in a way that we have called out things. But that is most definitely, as you are bringing that to me, that I should consider that. We talk about Black equity. We talk about all kind of things around when we know it has impacted Black folks. What does it look like? How we call it out? But no, we don't have a standard statement of what that language looks like on our website or when we're doing advocacy work. And so I need to consider that. So thank you.
Right on. I'm still learning myself. That's just something that I often address, because I've discovered over the years that frequently white people and non-white people, Black people too, will say racism, will talk about it and how it impacts and harms Black people, but either people don't have a definition at all, or we find out that lots of people have very different definitions for that term, which that's just important. At minimum, like we were talking about with the reparations bill, at minimum, that would be good to highlight, like, oh, this is what you mean when you say racism. That's not what I mean. So then we can look at, okay, like,
right,
we are not exactly talking about the
we're
same
on the
thing.
same page, right?
Right, exactly,
right.
Exactly.
Yep.
Still learning. I'm still learning myself. I guess to indulge some of our listeners and myself, I mean, hey, we have that book club, and we did read Jeffrey Toobin's book, The Run of His Life. It would seem mathematically you were in California, or at least connected to the region, when the trial of the 20th century went down. Do you have any fond recollections or nuggets that you gleaned from the O.J. Simpson trial, since you were right near the epicenter when all that went down?
Well, if you know anything about Brotherhood Crusade and our relationship with Johnny Cochran, we were actually, I was at the downtown courts very frequent, outside of the courts, with my board chairman. And so it's just interesting for us, of anybody who, if you have great attorneys and Johnny Cochran, brilliant, rest in peace, he did his job. He did his job for his client. And so we look at it from a standpoint of justice, of how many times the justice system is broken for Black folks. So, yes. And it's a couple of documentaries that our board chairman has been a part of around the trial. So, yeah.
That is amazing. And rest in peace, the late Johnny Cochran. I guess Roberta Flack as well.
Yes.
That today, Roberta Flack.
Yes. Oh, my God. I have a picture. So she was one of my father's good friends. Wow. And it's just so crazy because we had a big event last week with Councilwoman Heather Hutt and Spectrum with their Black leadership team for our youth night. And one of our pull-ups is like a historical piece with pictures of my dad and Danny on this one pull-up, because when we had our 50th anniversary, we pulled all this history and great archive pictures and all of that. And she literally, her picture with my father and my cousin and my two brothers is on this pull-up. And so when I saw the news that she passed, I was like, oh my God. So a little history that I just saw last week from our archives. And so rest in peace, Miss Roberta Flack.
Amen. Amen. Which, if you recall, which documentaries are Mr. Bakewell, is he a part of, talking about the O.J. Simpson case?
Oh my God. I'm gonna email you because my brain is like a little brain fog.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
But prominent role in two of them. So I'm not gonna give you the wrong name, and it's not coming to me. But I promise you, by the end of the week, I'm gonna send you both documentaries because they're fabulous. Both of them of the OJ trial, like literally very prominent in the piece. And I'm like, look at my boss. You know, some things you just get excited about, just because it's just no nonsense. You know, again, when you had a great father and a great mentor who's still teaching me, I'm like, y'all don't even know, but I know.
That is amazing. Did your dad have a connection to Johnny Cochran before he passed?
Yes, he did. He did. I mean, that honestly, and that, I think that's also so much love, because if you think of it, it was just my father, Mr. Bakewell, Danny, and me. So many people, my father loved my father. So many people loved Danny. And so that I had the best of both, you know, of having two strong Black men pour into me as a Black woman, and just learning, you know, of history, but learning how to do this work. And it's so interesting because now Danny and I are so close. He's just like, he always tells me, I'm just so proud of you. I'm just so proud of you. Because it is my father's legacy. It's his legacy, but more importantly, it's the community legacy. And we want our institution, as I tell people, I want people to know Brotherhood Crusade is just a great institution that cares about community, because the community invested in us when we didn't have any resources. It was the community who said, you are our charity. You are fighting for us. Our philosophy of helping people help themselves, and if Black people ain't willing to help our own people, how are we ever going to think that somebody else will help us? And so you just are proud, like, oh my God, like, to know that my dad and Danny, you know, given so much to our community and our people. It makes me smile every day that I have the best job on earth. So
holding it down for a quarter century. That's why not retiring anytime soon. Loving it. Loving it till the wheels fall off. Loving it. CEO and president of the Brotherhood Crusade. Again, what can folks do? They go to the website, www.brotherhoodcrusade.org. Say, man, I want to support all of this amazing work that you all have been doing, help you all get more vehicles and support the Trauma-Informed Youth Development Program. What do they do once they hit the website?
Just click and make a donation. Or if you want to send a check, because some people don't like using their credit cards or any apps, so you can always mail a check to Brotherhood Crusade, 200 East Lawson Avenue, Los Angeles, California, 90011. So if you don't feel comfortable using our website, our platform, please put a check in the mail.
BrotherhoodCrusade.org. They have the mailing address and such on the website. So go to the website. You'll see all of the information, all the great work is absolutely amazing. I guess my cherry on top, do you, my entire reason for going to California at all was Jim Jones and the People's Temple. He does have an LA connection. Is that something you paid attention to at all? The whole People's Temple fiasco and how that connects to LA as well?
The cult?
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, just from a history standpoint, like devastation, family, cultism of, So I'm not, originally when he had so many followers, I paid attention. I have not paid attention, from a historical standpoint of what that meant. No.
I got it. Most of us have not. I had myself. I only recently started studying. I talk about California state history. My goodness, both ends, L.A. and Bay Area. But wow, that is. I guess my pitch to exit. I told you we have a book club, so we are reading currently Dr. Maya Angelou's memoir, A Song Flung Up to Heaven. Amazing. Learned a ton. Watts Riots. That portion is coming up. Part of the connective how we got there was the book. Was Jonestown a CIA medical experiment? Wow. What an amazing read. It has footnotes, newspaper footage. Just wow. Wow.
Wow. That is a wow.
That's the book.
A wow.
That sent me to California. It was so I don't even like to travel. It sent me to California for over a month just to go research because of that book. Wow. Woo. And you said the FBI was out in front of our house in California. Hey. There was a lot of that in California, which is where the People's Temple was headquartered, in L.A. and San Francisco. But that is, either way, man, I have learned so much. I'm so thankful we were able to get you on the broadcast. Probably wouldn't have happened, seriously, if it had not been for Jonestown, because that was the whole reason that I went for California.
Wow.
And I sat on the beach saying, oh, my God, climate change is going to take all of this. Like, none of that would have happened if we had not read that book. Is Jonestown a CIA medical experiment? Oh, prophecy.
Well, I'm honored. Thank you, Gus. Thank you for just caring about our work and sharing it with your listeners. I'm honored and just, appreciate you lifting up our work. Thank you so much.
Oh, happy to do it. We will definitely keep following and stay in touch. Keep up the outstanding efforts, Miss Bremond, brotherhoodcrusade.org. Get rest and just continue the outstanding efforts.
Thank you, and have a great week.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Wow. CEO and president of the Brotherhood Crusade, Miss Charisse Bremond. I mean, wow. Standing ovation. I think she's even worthy of the clap. I mean, just wow, all of that amazing work on behalf, and I think pretty proudly on behalf of black people in the greater Los Angeles area. Just, wow, let's see. We'll pause and give the super well earned. Hit the website, Brotherhood Crusade.org. Should be linked in the description for the broadcast. If you get confused or what have you, you look down, click, be right there. You can support, again, see all their phenomenal work. She even has pictures of her father on the website. Kudos to both mom and dad during the broadcast, Bertha and Walter Bremond. Wow, black self-respect. Generational, right? Black self.
It is.
See there? Wow. So glad we were able to get her on the broadcast. And that is totally true. Like, all the way, I don't even think I would have paid attention to the wildfires. Like, it would have just been, oh, blip, and we would have moved on to, that's last month. We moved on. We got other things to talk about. I wouldn't have paid attention at all if I had not gone down there. And I was there. I said that repeatedly, like, oh my God, some of the places that burned, I was right there. Like, and right there saying.
You were right there in Malibu, yeah.
And choking on the smog as I groused about the air quality. Climate change is going to take. I literally said that, and I did not have fire in my brain at all. It was just looking at the water, and I said, wow, there's barely any beach here. If this sea level rises even an inch or two, like, these houses are going to be gone. Like, and the road might be gone too, because I was like, it's not really that much space from the water to the road.
No.
Like, woo, if it comes up any level at all of this, and then not even 2 months from that, sometimes the Creator gives you messages. That was one I got loud and clear. And the climate change, I'm convinced on that one too, Miss Breon, that I don't know if it's we did this or if just sometimes the planet has cycles and weather and it changes from time to time. Maybe it's a confluence of variables, but whatever the case, the climate is changing, and it does seem like there are way more of these extreme weather events, and it seems like California, they have whole book. They had a white, I forgot his name, but it was a white scientist. He said he left California because he said the temperature is going up. She said it's 80 degrees, it's wintertime. She said the temperature is going up, and they're going to have more of these type of events. And if they don't do anything to make housing more sustainable and all the resources that you would need, it is going to be terrible. Like, you could have mass catastrophe type events associated with these fires and such on a regular basis. And, woo, man, that would be something I would think about. Who do I think is going to be the mass casualties in all of this? That would be something I would have to think about if I'm a black person, especially if you have elderly black people or children or people, if they have a vehicle or if they don't have a vehicle. She said the cost of living in California is astronomical, and it does not look like it's going down anytime soon. So it is a lot too, because climate, that would be something right there. Pay attention seriously to weather, climate, all of that, and how that might impact where you are. I think she said we didn't have this. The first time we even had this sort of evacuation.
Yes.
Sadly, first time for everything. Sometimes that's a good thing.
And not.
If it's weather related, be mindful. We'll take a quick commercial break, give a quick pause, and make sure we covered everything, didn't miss out, and then we'll wrap up for the broadcast. But much obliged for everyone tuning in, hopefully worthy of your Monday evening. Quick commercial, and we will be right back. Context of white supremacy.
Black people should stay away from each other except when they have a constructive agenda. That's a part of the black code, you might say, or the compensatory code covering that. Why? Because we're full of poison, that's why. Put there by the white supremacists. We're born bathed in poison. And then they turn us loose on each other. And the first thing we do start doing is messing over each other. We should stay away from each other. We're always talking about we got to get together. not without an agenda. That's why Louis Farrakhan, when he called for the Million Man March, he laid out what? An agenda. And made it, and also knowing us, if it was told correctly, he said, when you get there, don't throw any trash down. Come in, take part in the ceremony, and as soon as it is over, get on them buses and get back where you came from. Now, I don't know whether he came up with that or somebody in his entourage or whatever. It was the correct prescription, because you cannot have black people milling around under any circumstance, not nowhere on this planet, with no agenda. Now, you know what's going to happen. All somebody's got to do is step on somebody's foot. Then there's MF this and MF that, and then 9mm popping all over the place. And everybody running and screaming. We're good at that. You can almost predict it if you get enough black people together with no agenda. I mean, you can almost feel it. I mean, you know, if you've been around, you know, you just kind of look around and say, uh-oh, there's about 7,000 of us here now. What are we doing here? Don't nobody know. Oh, yeah? You had better start getting away from there. Because all somebody has to do is just say what you're looking at. End of story. Complete pandemonium. Killing like you wouldn't believe on a huge scale. And because what started it? Dude was looking at me, man. He ain't got no business looking at me. I don't know him. He don't know me. I don't want to know him, ugly as he is. That's us. We call it black culture. It ain't worth 2 cents. Nowhere. Nobody with any sense would want to buy into that. E.T. or anybody comes here from the moon would want to buy into what we call and brag about black culture. Logically speaking, why? I am here, I just got here from the planet Krypton. I would like to speak to, let's see, what do I have here? Black people. I would like to know about what they do that they are most proud of. The first black person they talk to, the average black male, and I'm not saying all of us, the first one that he walk up on, you better go back where you come from, ML. Black culture, so much for it. That's us. Hold up a mirror, really. And we've been so drunk on it so long, we brag about it. Not even out of the cradle of civilization. That's not to say that the white supremacists are civilized. They are the ones that started this mess and set it up this way. All right? They have us acting like this, and they intend for us to continue. And they will fund you. They will put up money behind you as long as you're doing something stupid. You start doing anything that looks like it's going somewhere that's going to make sense, the money is withdrawn. And we ought to know that by now. But if you're going, hey, you want to get into the drug business? No problem.
Neely Fuller Jr. missed as well. ProduceJustice.com. The great Neely Fuller Jr. Wow, and Roberta Flack as well. Like, man, has been one, 2025 thus far. Any hoodles, we will be here on Friday for the book club, Catherine Massey Book Club, second installment, Dr. Maya Angelou, A Song Flung Up to Heaven. And again, our timing, she has migrated back to L.A. Watts riots, which is kind of wild for her to be there and just kind of reporting front row on what transpired and what have you. But hey, that is where we are in the text coming up on Friday. On Thursday, we had our switcheroo, people still adjusting, neutralizing workplace racism. Normal time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, Thursday, Friday. At minimum, you have to check in to see if we have programs prior to Thursday, but we'll, at minimum, Thursday through Sunday, should be broadcasting this week on our counter-racist grind. Make sure you all invest and hit the Brotherhood Crusade website. I get the impression, I could be wrong, I just get the general impression that a lot of folks are not aware of the high number of black people who were impacted by the California wildfires. Maybe didn't know that there's so many black residents in Altadena. I wasn't aware of that myself, and I was just, right in Malibu. But hey, it is true. Now we have a little bit more info. The LA Sentinel, black newspaper that has a lot of info about Jonestown. They also have a lot of details about the wildfire and ways you can support all of that. That counter-racism, one way you can examine right there. Current events, what's going on with the wildfires, and UCLA. They just had a whole report about when they have these sort of natural disasters, black people are going to be worst impacted in terms of funding, resources, who had insurance and who didn't, all of that, like very detailed, and it goes back like years, looking at a number of natural disasters. I guess you could pause for Katrina again. Let's see. Our caller, victim times 3. Did you have any observations, comments that you wanted to get in? Thought that was a pretty good question about the impact of legalized recreational cannabis in the California region, which we have here in Washington State as well. Did you have any thoughts you wanted to share, victim?
Yes, sir. Yeah. There were so many things I could have asked her because she's been here so long and has been active, which is I appreciate that. What was it I wanted to ask her? You asked a couple of questions I had in mind too. That's about just Sacramento with Jim Jones and everything. I heard that she was born there, I believe, and then moved down here to LA. But yeah, she's a wealth of knowledge. I mean, if anything, possibly in the future, maybe we can have a second interview to see after the as time has passed and see what is actually happened when it came to the Eaton fire and the housing for the displaced victims. Maybe that could be something of constructive value. But yeah, that's all I really had to add to it right now. But thank you again for the broadcast.
Do you get the impression, really quick, I guess as someone in close to the region, do you get the impression that the California wildfires and how this has impacted black people, that a lot of black people are talking about this, or even I won't say a lot, like a significant portion, and gauging by just other non-white people that you come in contact with who are outside of California? Are they talking about this and how this has impacted black people and the racial dislocation that's happening with black house owners? Do you see people talking about this on social media and such, posting videos and talking about this? Does it seem like this is an event that people are concerned about?
No. I'll just answer your questions flat out. No, it has not been advertised or discussed as in vibe as it should be, and you're right about that. But I do correspond with the relative that is or does have connections to that area. And during the interview, I was corresponding with her, asking her about, people who are been confronted to sell. Do you know anyone who is willing to sell? Do you know anyone who wasn't utilized some of the FEMA, housing that they had out for a couple of them? I asked her a couple of questions, and she said no one she knows is selling or willing to sell at all, which I thought was great. And she doesn't know anyone who has utilized those FEMA, resources that they are offering. And, so that's what I was communicating with my relative about a second ago. Dang.
Wow. I guess one for your relatives or anyone else in the LA area, the Los Angeles Sentinel and Bakewell Media might be related to Danny Bakewell Sr. that we heard, but Bakewell Media, they're going to host the Wildfire Recovery and Rebuild Conference on Saturday, March 29th, and it's an all-day event from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. That's the Wildfire Recovery and Rebuild Conference, and they'll have information on funding and other financial resources, just probably safety, carcinogens in the cleanup effort and all of that. But March 29, all day long, might be something to check out just in terms of getting access to resources. That is a part of how non-white people, black people, generally end up being way worse off in these type of episodes, not having all the information about resources that are available. Then sometimes it'll be language, not having help to access these forms and all that. Variety of different ways where we end up, as they say, coming out short on these disasters in the system of white supremacy. But the not paying attention to, and I can't even really say like, well, white people are most to blame directly, because they have had in the LA Times, and that's, I think the biggest paper for the metro LA area, I think that's way bigger than the LA Sentinel, but they've had a number of reports in the LA Times about the impact specifically of these wildfires on black people, the racial dislocation of it all, and trying to get them come in and make these fire sale offers for their properties. Like, they've had a number of articles. I've shared those. The LA Sentinel has had articles. 60 Minutes had a segment. Like, I've said, The Guardian, Oregon Public Broadcasting, like, widespread outlets have had, the Washington Post, like, widespread outlets have had reports, video, written content talking about black victims of these fires. I just have not. I've even pointed out, nobody has sent me any material about black victims of the wildfires. Nobody. Now, I've got movies and all kinds of other material. O.J. Simpson, nothing about the wildfires. I mean, you had black people who died, certainly black children who can't go to school, black people and asthma. That alone, like, major respiratory issue. We should have learned that from COVID. Nobody has sent me one article about black people and the wildfires. And I would be in that same boat. I cannot emphasize enough. If I had not gone to California, we would not be doing this program right now. I would wager every nickel in the world, because I just would not have been that focused on, because my thought, they have wildfires in California pretty often, it seems. What's so big a deal about that one? Now, maybe if I had caught some of those 60-minute reports or whatever, I don't know if it would have been something that would have sustained my attention. But I mean, I was just there. And I just said this, and I told you, I groused about the air quality every day, every single day. I went, did my film, blah, blah, blah. That was all I talked about. I wasn't even talking about racism. I was talking about, like, oh my God, do y'all breathe this? Like, what is going on here? Do y'all masks? Like, what? What? This is totally unacceptable. I wouldn't even live here. I couldn't live here. That was all I talked about, was the air quality. That was what I reported as soon as I got back on the air. And I told you that young black lady, lovely, sassed me. Said, "Oh, black brother, where are you from?" I said, "Oh, I'm down here for the film festival. I'm visiting from Seattle." Said, "Ugh, Seattle? Doesn't it rain there?" And she scrunched her face up all tough, like, you're talking about soiled feces or something. Yes, it rained. Even now, prior to the mudslides, when we talked about this last month, I said, now, man, they would do a jig in the streets in Southern California for a teaspoon of rain. Whatever. But I said, yes, it does rain in Seattle. It's raining today. In fact, rained yesterday too. That's why we don't have all that smog in the air so you can breathe. She didn't say anything. She thought for a moment and said, "Oh, What's more important than breathing? Neely Fuller Jr. People don't even quote that one. That is one of the best lines of all time from Mr. Fuller. What is better than breathing? Now, he wasn't even saying it in a climate change context, but it would still apply. What is better than breathing? That's something I would have to think about too. Like, oh man, now if we're going to stay in California moving, and that this is going to be the new normal, like you already know, like you live in Florida, once a year, maybe once every other year, you already know you're going to have to board up the house and might have to evacuate and get gas and fill up the bathtub with water so you can flush the toilet and all the rest of it. Might have to replace all the windows and no electricity for a month. That is the cost of doing business in Florida. This might be the cost of business of living in Southern California. They have, catastrophic wildfires from time to time and burn down the whole neighborhood and have to evacuate and rebuild. But, it is nice. And we do live, we get to see Denzel from time to time, go see Bron at the games. That might be, and you can't drink the water. She said that you got to get bottled water. She said it's expensive, live in California. Woo! I mean, wow. And you got to get a mask. She said that you got to get a good mask, a really good mask, and a really good air filter because, ooh-wee, they get that benzene in the water. I even thought now, they had that report today. They said all that fire debris and stuff was washing up on the beach all the way down to Redondo. Now, this is not one of those moments where Gus T get to sit back and gloat and say, I told you so. I don't even have those. What's on the plantation? All of the moments where we come back to, I was correct about something that I said, it generally goes back to, oh, we are in a system of white supremacy, racism, and white people are stomping us. That ain't nothing to be like, told you so, with white people's foot on my spinal column. Told you so, dumb nigger. See what I'm saying? It's nothing to really, stick your, I can't even stick my chest out. They got their foot on my neck. That said, that black fella who had never contacted me in life unless I have been in error, at least not by that email, maybe made a burner account to mock me, but contacted me for the first time in life to mock me about my concerns about the air quality in Redondo Beach, even before the fires. He mocked me about all that. You don't know what you're talking about, and all that. And then mocked me again once the fires actually happened. Mocked me. Then, and it was twofold. It was one, LA Times. And this was from a person who said they needed someone outside of LA to inform them, hey, black brother, y'all are having wildfires down there. What? Really? When? Woo! Pay attention to the local news. Anyway, the local news in LA, they reported that, we are getting signals of wildfire debris up to 150 miles away from the epicenter of this event. Redondo Beach and all of the areas that I was being mocked for having concerns about their air quality are considerably closer than 150 miles. Today, one of the regions that I was told, oh, everything is cool, they ain't got no problems in Redondo Beach. LA Times reported specifically, even Redondo Beach, we got fire debris washing up on the beach. Big black columns of the stuff, and they got pictures of it. Ugh. Stay clear. Ugh, don't touch it. Ugh, we don't even know. They even said that. We don't even know. And that's what I said weeks ago. This might be the type of thing where they come and tell you 20 years later, we might get to 2050, and it's, oh my God, those LA wildfires cut people's life expectancy by 5%. It would not, and particularly, now they've said you got soil contamination, water contamination, air contamination. I would not be surprised at all, whatever data they come out and say all those years later, but they had that today. Can't even go to the beach now. Why? That's one of the things I say. You go to California, so you can go to the beach. Ooh, stay away. They got the. To live and die in L.A. indeed. You put that with the question about all the homelessness. Oh my God, L.A. is the most dangerous place in the world. Like, woo, I am so glad that we had somebody who lives there to give all of that information about. Woo, if you don't have a safety net here, woo, L.A. is so dangerous. I had to flee. It wasn't because of the wildfires. It was just Dodgers won the World Series. We can go burn down the bus. Woo! Like, man, L.A. is so, and it's so many people there. Like, man, in the system of white supremacy racism, she said you go to L.A. and you don't have a plan. You don't have no structure, and you just go to L.A. and who knows what's going to happen. What I said, you might end up in front of Intuit selling oranges. That's what's going to happen if you don't have no plan. System of white supremacy racism. And you go to L.A. thinking, oh, my goodness, I'm going to be in movies. Ooh, I'm going to see LeBron James. Ooh, I'm going to be like Bronny James. Woo, and that's we are in fantasy land. Watching TV, reading is more important than watching TV. You can watch TV and you will be fooled about Los Angeles. Oh, my God, just the air quality. They had black people out protesting this weekend about Altadena is not for sale. That's the signs, what they had on the signs. Altadena is not for sale. Man, I was looking at the air in the back. If you didn't know about it, you said, oh, man, they had a little bit of fog in the air. That's not fog.
Mm-hmm.
L.A., big city of dreams. Indeed. I switched it, Tupac, I hope you can forgive me, black brother, to live and breathe in L.A. What is more important than breathing? And you know who's going to have to be outside for all those jobs like Amazon delivery, landscaping, things where you'd be required to be out street sweepers and that sort of thing. You got to be outside all day long. Agricultural work, dark people. Same thing they said with COVID. And not to mention the unhoused. Anyway, Victim, did you have additional thoughts you wanted to get in, sir?
Yes, sir. You did remind me of something else you brought up to our guest. You brought up the fact that an organization should have a definition for something that they're trying to address. And there was a moment that she had, I guess, an epiphany about something she's going to bring up to her next board meeting. And that was one point. Another point you triggered that, I do myself, I have a slight asthma, and that could be due to the fact that I was born here and raised up here. You also are reminding me that I have been seeing an uptick in advertisements for people willing to buy land or buy your house cash immediately, regardless of the condition. That's been I've seen a lot of those commercials recently. Just and of course the air quality and the water quality. If it's not the debris from the fire, it was the TD. What was it? The what do they call that? The stuff you put on plants, plant killer or whatever. That was in the water
DDT?
At one point. DDT. That's what. Thank you, sir. Yeah, so that was in the water as well at one point. It's a lot to consider, but also about your point about people not really talking about the fires or talking about this type of stuff. It could be the fact that a lot of people are just in a whole malaise of back-to-back catastrophes, whether it be the fire, then right after that we had the rain, which would have came sooner than better, but it had the rain and caused mudslides and flooding. So it's always something to consider.
They do have a whole book about that in terms of California, and it's just disaster every day. Hey, that's part of the business of living here, where that just becomes ho-hum about it. I don't know. That would also be something to think about. Like, dang, we live in a place where we could have a natural disaster and we could die and nobody would even care. We wouldn't even get a footnote or hashtag. Like maybe we get one day's worth of attention and they be on to whatever wacky thing President Trump said, or, anything. Who knows? They had a school shooting or anything else. And, it'd just be a footnote like, oh, yeah, they had that wildfire back then. Anyway, man, in California, even real talk, they just had that wacky Super Bowl, exciting whites. Kendrick Lamar, who has donated to the wildfire, proud California native and SoCal specifically, has donated, went out to the Super Bowl. Now, I still haven't watched the halftime performance. You can revoke my Negro card, black participation, whatever. Fine. I still haven't watched it. We were on the air broadcasting, but I haven't heard anyone tell me, wow, he took a moment and made a poignant, insightful commentary and shout out for the California wildfire victims, did a whole song, encouraged people to invest, had pictures of some of the black victims, non-white victims, total. Now, maybe he did, and I just missed it. I did not see it. All I have heard is conflict with another non-white person. That alone, and even the Super Bowl, I know they took maybe a moment and, wildfire victims and the flood victims. They could have done a lot to highlight that. They got teams in L.A. and all of that. Like, man, for people to set up for as much talk as there is about so-called gentrification, you got one of the most popular cities, one of the most well-known cities in the world, and you have a campaign of racial dislocation right now, live time. In addition to climate change, President Trump is talking about gutting the EPA and specifically departments related to climate change. This would be a big one. Like, oh man, wait a minute. We might need that. Might have more of this sort of thing in California. What can we do to plan? And particularly what's the health impact of all this? EPA could maybe help out on all that. Like, all of that has an impact on black people disproportionately. Even white people have said this. There would be lots of reasons. Maybe this would be, and this could be coming to a city near you, unfortunately. Lots of reasons why I would say, hey, we have many more things to pay attention to than what is on television. Serious study, really just paying attention to the news. There were people who live in L.A., they had to be told by people who don't even live in California, take cover, wildfire's coming. Worthy of great pity. With the definition for racism, I will say again, now that is a little bit of refinement because we do have a rule here, white guests only for many reasons, but I thought this was important. Same thing with Roger Golubsky and the victims, right? Wyandotte, justice for Wyandotte. I thought that was important too. Hopefully I was correct on both accounts. But I say the times when we break our rule and we have non-white guests, I don't ask them my definition of racism to see if they think it's accurate. I ask to see if they have a definition, and I've said overwhelmingly that is the case, where we non-white people do not have a definition for racism. I don't point that out, to disparage anyone. Just number one, it's just that is true. And two, now I come back, now if we non-white people, if we are experts on racism, how is it that like 95% of us, we don't even have a definition for racism? That should stand out. And I mean, a lot of times even we're talking about people who have written books about racism, talk about racism all the time, no definition at all. And sometimes they say the same thing. We know racism when we see it. I've said that before. In a universe where it's supposed to be infinite possibilities and we're talking to different people, different sexes, male, female, widely different ages, generations, born in different geographic locations, sometimes born in different continents, different parts of the world and everything. How can it be that so many people have the same response to so many of these questions about racism? Of course, non-white people are more informed about racism. Of course, I know racism when I see it. How can it be that so many people say the same thing? At minimum, that should be scrutinized. Like, wait a minute now. Too many people are saying the same thing. Or is there a script that we, are all reading from, or how have we all been conditioned to have the same conclusion, and sometimes specious conclusions at best? And definitions, that's just, basic logic, right? They say that in elementary school, you shouldn't use terms if you don't have a definition for them. And man, racism is one we should have a definition. Methinks that is very important, even if it's not mine. Have a definition. That way we can see, okay, this is what we mean when we say racism and why these things happen to why black people got to worry. These folks are trying to call and get our house for below market value. Man, that is racism. As is the asthma. I can only say, I think back, we had it on the compensatory call-in where they said the number one cause for school absenteeism, not crack cocaine, Madden, PlayStation 5, none of the above. Asthma. I was staggered because I guess because thankfully I don't have asthma, so that's not something that would come to my brain computer, but asthma. And they immediately went to, racism, white supremacy for a variety of reasons. Once we didn't put you in all these Flint, Michigan situations where the water is toxic and the air is toxic and you don't have no ventilation, and we didn't put all kinds of chemicals and DDT and everything else on you. Oh yeah, you're going to have 3-4 generations of dark children that's got all kinds of asthma. I told the black fella that, why am I paying attention to all this? I told you when I was down in L.A. at the film festival, I didn't get to, ain't that Denzel Washington something? Ain't that Michael B. Jordan something? I ain't going to talk about, well, we did talk a little bit about that, but mostly I was redirecting the conversation. Man, do you breathe? But man, what is up with this? That's what I was talking about. The black brother that I talked to, spoiler-free reviews, who was at the film festival. He had a pass like me so we could be in the VIP section. We went to see The Order together. I said, man, how do you breathe down here in all this? And he said, well, I grew up in Seattle, and I have asthma, privileged black male. And he said, man, when I was in Seattle, I got spoiled and breathing all that good air, and they got all those trees. And it rains in the 206. He said, man, I came down here to L.A. My asthma act up something terrible. That was my response. I didn't say nothing. I just looked like, oh, my God, I got to get the hell out of here. I didn't even know what to say. Like, what? And again, nearly full of Junior, the genius. What's more important than breathing? If you got to answer that question, let me know. So fast forward to the wildfires, I reach out to my black brother. Oh my goodness. Hope you're all right. Safe, breathing. He got posted on the social media page. This was, I think, like it wasn't quite a week after the wildfire started in January, but it was close to a week or so afterwards. He said, today is the first day that I woke up and my lungs aren't boiling. He got asthma like victim cubed. Now, I don't know what that feels like. I have never said, oof, my lungs is boiling. But that does not sound fun. Even if you don't have asthma, that does not sound fun. But that sounds like it might be the price of business if you're going to live in L.A. Woof. And you can't drink the water in some cases. And you can't go in your garden. To live and breathe in L.A. The asthma alone is so many black people like across the U.S. that have asthma because of racists. That also, anything that's like a respiratory problem, like, ooh, I know my black brother's hurting because I'd be hurting if I was there. That also should trigger I'm going to go look. But That's been my observation. That didn't happen at all. Again, it might be that the black people, non-white people who are interested in this and are paying attention to all of this from a counter-racist perspective, that they just don't communicate with Gus T. No problem there. But woo, I have had non-white people talk to me about Orenthal James and a whole lot of other subject, old California history in the midst of all of this. Is this not important? Octavia Butler's grave almost burned down. And all this, like the cemetery where she's buried. She wrote Kindred, Cowbell, not my favorite book. Parable of the Sower, which is directly about all of this. Her gravesite almost burned down. The bookstore that bears her name, Octavia's Shelf, in Pasadena, they have become a hub to help black people. Nikki High is her name, black female, victim of white supremacy. Like, isn't that important? We got lots of black people who say, man, that Octavia Butler is something. Parable of the Sower and Kindred, and wow, she is amazing. Her gravesite almost burned down. I get it. If you don't live in California, you may not, pay attention. You've got more pressing things. But, man, I think we should pay attention. I mean, if you talk about racism, white supremacy, well, there you go. Let me get that house, black brother. You're not going to want those burned out ruins. I'll give you $100,000. And they said median home price out there is $1.4 million. I'll give you $100,000. Come on. You don't need to worry about all that. Come on. Racial dislocation. And I would even insert what Fuller said, especially here. Ooh, I guess it might be prepare to move for a lot of folks, which is what they've already come to. Like, wow, with the housing costs in California, insurance difficulties, we didn't talk about that, insurance difficulties and all the rest. Do you have employment? Is there a school for your child? Can you breathe the air? Can you drink the water? It might be prepared to move. And some people, it might be prepared to move out of the state because you can't even get a house or an apartment in L.A. or someplace, Pomona or Anaheim, Utah, Idaho, who knows? Like, man, racial dislocation. They said it was 43% black people in the 80s in Altadena. Now, before the fire, it was 18%. Let's come back and measure in 2030 and see if it's even at 15%. I would be stunned. Not wishing, that's another, like I'm never in a position where I get to be, told you so, never. But if it's at 15% black population in 2030, I would be stunned. And you might have to have like an extraordinary air filter. You can't grow anything in your garden. And you got to have bottled water if you are going to live there. Like, that might be the case. Hopefully not. But I mean, that's what Octavia Butler wrote about. And her cemetery almost burned down. So apparently she was somewhat accurate. Anything else folks need to get in before they wrap up?
Yeah, I guess. You said that if you stay, you be selling oranges in front of into a dome. Nah, they'll probably arrest you for loitering.
That's true. That's true. I did not mention LAPD. LA is so dangerous. I generally leave out the LAPD and Mark Furman. Unless O.J. Simpson, pops up, and sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. We got it in Johnny Cochran got his book right there. Journey to Justice. He wrote several books, but that's the one I'm looking at right there. The great Johnny Cochran, always get in a plug. But you do have to have a permit. It's not like, sometimes they'll let you sell oranges in front of Intuit, and then sometimes they don't. They say, Kawhi gonna play tonight. You can't sell oranges in front of Intuit. We got to, you got to get in the car tonight. Sorry, guys, no oranges today. So, man, I'm good on all of that. Hang on. Even though they had every sort of character selling drinks and hot dogs and Trump paraphernalia out on Hollywood now. Maybe they had permits, but I mean, it was all kinds of folks set up and arguing and fighting amongst each other and everything. Man, Y'all can have all of LA, even the parts that they cheat and call LA that's not LA. Inglewood and Watson, all these other places, Redondo Beach, all these other outliers too. You can have all of that, all of that. San Diego too, and I love San Diego. You can have all of that. Yeah, I'm not interested in having to have no evacuation plans, and got to have our fire evacuation plans, and we got to go to the sea level rise, and we got to have our amazing mask of not for the Rona. This is just for the regular, everyday poisoned air in California that we got to have our masks on and can't even afford air filters for the house. Like, come on. Are you serious? Are you serious? Just for the privilege of living close to Denzel? Bron? He about to retire. Both of them, they both about to retire. Like, come on. I don't love Luka Doncic that much. Like, nah. Like, I wouldn't care if Bron was going to be my neighbor. Like, Bron, Magic Johnson, both gonna be my neighbors. I'm good. What type of air filter? What type of air filter you got at the crib, Bron? Magic, Magic, you've been there a long time too. What type of air filter you got at your house? Let us know. Let me get like 20 of those, cause let me get 20 of them. Give me 20 of them, and then what type of water filtration system you got at your residence? Let me get 20 of those too. If I'm gonna stay here, any of them. Matter of fact, let me stay with you. see what you got at your residence, because I just man, if I couldn't get that sort of hookup, you can have I told you, even the places that I loved in Los Angeles. I said, if I had to go back, I'm gonna go hang out the UCLA point. That UCLA was evacuated during the wildfires. I said I'm gonna go hang out, put them dudes on Zoom. You spend all that money to go out hang out at UCLA, and you gotta hang out on Zoom again. And I didn't get to hang in UCLA. I said, I'm gonna go do like close to Malibu, Santa Monica, something like that, where I can be close to the beach, and then I can still get back to West LA and do my little bit over there. That is exactly where the fires were. No, the air is going to be messed up. Minimum might have stayed someplace close to where, we got to evacuate. Deuces on all of that. That's what, pay attention. I cannot say that enough. Pay attention to the news. If you have to read it, watch it, listen to it, you should be able to pick some media platform where you are informed. This is me too. It's not like I'm the most informed person about what's happening in Seattle area, but I mean, it should not be where some sort of catastrophic event where you could die and you have to be thankful that you have somebody who lives 500 miles away who is more informed about where you live than you are. That is crazy, especially now all the apps and everything. You should, at minimum, if you live in California, you should have an app about wildfires or any other natural disaster, especially if you live in SoCal. Air quality, I would have to have air quality. Oh my God. How many masks do I need to step outside today? Are we going to be able to go for a walk today? Can we do yoga outside today? Or are we going to have to be in the house with a towel underneath the door seal? How much toxin do we have to deal with today? Can we drink the water? It's an astronomical cost of business living and dying in Los Angeles, Southern California. And California in general. We didn't even get to the earthquakes. Ugh. And they had one of those. That is how wacky SoCal is. They had an earthquake since the beginning of the year, and it didn't, knock over a whole lot of buildings or anything. That was just kind of, Anyway, back to, is Luka going to play tonight? You think Man, when the Dodgers, when it's open season, we're going to get to the fella that contacted me to mock me. He did not know about the toxicity of all of this with the wildfire. He didn't even know when the wildfires were going to take place. He knew about them Dodgers. That is Negro Culture 2025. I can recite every Kobe Bryant statistic from the beginning of his career to the fateful end in 2020. Did you read Urugu? I think Lakers had a game that I'm going to get to it. I'm going to tell you that Kobe Bryant, though, man. Woo! We miss you, Kobe. It's Black Mamba. Black Mamba. That's it. We will be here minimum Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Well, yes, we will be here Thursday, but not for the book club, Neutralizing Workplace Racism. And then Friday, book club, Maya Angelou in Los Angeles. Watts Riots. Can't wait. Compensatory call-in on Saturday, and then we should have our guest back to the normal policy, white guests only, Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Hopefully worthy of your time and energy. Really, hopefully inspire some folks to be, alert about what's happening in California. We have a lot of California, or I won't say guests, we have a lot of COWS listeners who either reside in California or they have connections, like they were born in California or whatever the case may be. Even the vast majority of them have not contacted and raised concerns about the wildfires. That also is, dang, what in the world? What in the world? Like, now, again, if people are just not informed and, all that, I guess. But I mean, this has been talked about quite a bit. Now, again, I do know a lot of black people even brag about not checking the news, but I'm sure our black brothers and sisters who are hurting and lost everything would sure enough appreciate if we could, 3 minutes of time, if you could just post something on. So the Brotherhood Crusade, maybe you could post a link for what they're trying to do. If you think that's helpful, trying to help out black people who lost a house, lost their car, job burned down, school burned down. If you think, maybe 3 minutes of your time to let folks know, give a reminder about all of this, and maybe even why, regardless of why it's taking place, these major climate events, they tend to do a double, triple, quadruple whammy on black people. Be advised, might be coming to a town near you, unfortunately. That said, sobriety would be best. We heard about that recreational cannabis, all that substance abuse. That certainly is not helping things in California, unless I've been misinformed. Or Seattle, because we got all that wacky tobacco and recreational stuff here too. I didn't think it was going to help out black people before and haven't seen any evidence that it's been helpful since. But sobriety, need that brain. Hey, if you might have to evacuate to save your life, I think you would rather do that sober than we just drank this whole bottle of Johnny Walker. Now we got to try to flee and save our lives. Make sure you make the best decision for yourself. Any hoodles, let's see. Forgot I switched up our prayer. We'll do it at the end. Invest if you think the cows is constructive. Hit the Amazon wish list as well under Gus T. Renegade. Me and Jeff Bezos appreciate you. Creator, help me maximize my time and energy to replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Help me to stop wasting non-white people's time and energy. Echo, including my own. Minimize contact. Minimize conflict. Stop name-calling black people. Stop being discourteous to black people. Stop gossiping. Stop producing throwaway offspring. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Cow signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed. I'm a victim, brother. No problem. You're a victim. Yeah. I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning. Shut up. The man has programmed my condition. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.